Hello and welcome to What Now with Anna and Eric. I'm Anna,
I'm Eric.
and we have been reading the Bible through chronologically in a year. We are into September. We're still in the Old Testament.
We are, but there's light.
Light
That
is
light?
coming. It's so
Jesus.
tangibly close.
Yes.
It's so close. But
I got so excited. And you even told me the date. You're like September 23rd. And I don't know why on the first week of September, I'm like, oh, we're almost there. And I'm like, there is still a whole lot of stuff to get through in this.
it is literally, we still have 2 more weeks of Old Testament.
Yeah.
And then we hit the New Testament.
I know.
I'm bleeding. I'm internally bleeding. The pain that is still going on.
Oh, wow.
This is a confession. I almost just skipped to the New Testament, just started reading about Jesus, just to, like, feel it a little bit. But I'm like,
wow.
We're doing chronological, like, yeah, it shouldn't, but I wanted to.
And I was talking to somebody about that, and I think, like I said, this is the first time reading the Bible this way that, besides reading the Bible for the first time, that I've felt this way about script. Like, it's the first time where it's seriously like, yeah, like there's this excitement building and there's this passion to it. And I was just thinking about how far we've come through this and like where we're at and where we're going. And it's like, this has definitely like sparked something. And I think this little bit of time is going to make the New Testament, and when we get into that, just so much more impactful.
Yes. For real.
That's what I'm holding on to. So as we might be thinking internal bleeding and torment and all of those things, I think we are getting there. We are so close.
I knew the Old Testament was bigger than the New Testament, but I did not think we were going to be almost all the way through September before we got there.
Well, and like I said, I in the past, I've kind of just pick and choose and moved section to section, kind of that way. And then the other time that I've done the Bible in a year, it's been, I think it's that Roger Rogers reading, or whatever, the Robert Roberts reading plan, or whatever it is, where it's a piece of the Old Testament, Psalm and Proverbs, a piece of the New Testament, and it runs you through the year. So, so that's kind of been where I sat in it, and it kind of splits it up. But to really just sit in the Old Testament and build and build and build to that moment is definitely a whole new feeling in this. So it is
so for those of you tuning in and you're like, maybe I should do this, and then you listen to this, you're like, maybe I shouldn't. It really is good. It's really powerful, I want to say. So this has nothing to do with the verses necessarily, but I figure I'll share it. It's related to the biblical reading. I woke up at 3 a.m. randomly, and my heart was just so heavy. And I was thinking about this because I was thinking about, where the world is at before Jesus, like that there is just, sin is everywhere and it has become commonplace and nobody's talking about it. And there's just this, we talk about the silence of God during the time that's going to come right before Jesus, where we don't see a lot, like the prophecies are happening. And then there's like this time where you're not hearing directly from God. But there's also this great silence in humanity that is happening at this period of time, which leads to these circumstances. And I just like kept paralleling it. I did say that right. Paralleling it to where we are at today, because we had talked previously about, what are you not speaking about to your friends or your neighbors or whoever it is, where you have been silenced as to the truth. And so I'm up at 3 a.m. and I'm thinking about this, and then I'm thinking, okay, but Jesus is coming. Like, that's in my mind. Like, Jesus is coming. We're so close. And then I was just struck with this realization of where God was at this point in history, where we're reading at right now. Like, there's this almost horrible anticipation because God is about to change our lives. And to do that, he's about to lose greatly. Like, for us as Christians, to say that God gave up his only son to some extent has become commonplace for us, like it's lost some of its heaviness. But I think one of the most powerful things about reading this chronologically is feeling the heaviness of this moment of where God is literally about to change the world so that we can get to heaven because we have just obliterated everything with our sin.
Yeah.
But he's also at this point where he is working up to the moment where he has to give up a part of himself, the one part of himself, his son, that has always been faithful, that has always loved him, for a bunch of people who just always turn back.
Well, and I think that's the huge part of it. And everybody, I don't know, you get into conversations, and I think to some extent in a bad way, we try to humanize God, and we try to like put human rationale into what God's doing, and we don't. But in this, I can't help but humanize this situation that God's going through. He has these people who he created in his image. Jesus was right there the whole time. The Holy Spirit, they're there the whole time through all of this. And he's agonizing, giving chance after chance after chance for us to figure it out, for us to do it. And through all of this, he's now going to make this decision for Jesus to come to earth, for Jesus to go through what Jesus goes through, for a people who have given no respect or nothing to him in return. And it's just to sit there and to agonize over this. And that's where I have that human feeling of how big that decision is and how awesome that love and mercy and grace is in that.
Yeah.
Where, and somebody cuts us off on the expressway, we can't forgive them or whatever that, but I mean, it's like, but yeah, it's just that parallel between what's going on right now. And you think about it, and yeah, who is paying attention to Jesus right now? Who is putting God first? And if you look around, if it's sports coming back, if it's, oh, we got to go to online church, so do we really need to go back to church, or do we just need to hop on YouTube every Sunday for an hour? Those things, it's like, where are we prioritizing God in this, and where are we prioritizing what the Bible is telling us? And it is so, if you're a believer and you've gone through this and you don't see what's going on in the world today and see what the Bible is telling us of what's going on in the world right here, and yeah, we have this anticipation of, oh, but Jesus is coming. Well, what about right now where Jesus has come? Jesus has already done it. Like, and we're sitting in here and we're still kind of pushing it aside. So it's crazy. But yeah, I don't know. It's really had me take a very honest look at myself to say, wow, in our house, are we really praying the way we should? Are we really looking at scripture? Is that a part of our family, and is it prioritized for us, or is it pushed aside? In my life, talking to friends, stuff like that, is that really priority? And in a lot of instances, unfortunately, my answer was, wow, it isn't as prioritized as I need it to be, and I really need to change things. And that's kind of what this whole process of reading through the Old Testament has done, is allowed me to have self-reflection, throwback, self-reflection on where I'm at with it, and where do I become lazy in my faith, in my belief in Jesus. Where have I become lazy in it? So yeah, it's, I don't know, if you're not reading this and you're not having kind of impactful moments, then you might be skimming through it a little too a little too quickly or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think, something that's very powerful about this, um, I would recommend this to anybody, reading through the Bible chronologically. But it really does, as much as I complain about still not being in the New Testament, it does give it a very heavy weight, and I have high expectations for when Jesus shows up on the scene, and things are going to change, as they technically are changed historically right now. But if you are thinking about doing a Bible plan, even if you're not thinking about doing a Bible plan, get engaged in this, because this is really powerful.
Well, and that's, I was in a discussion with a group of people, and it was about the challenge of reading the Bible in a year. And there were people like, well, I've never done that. And then there was the debate of, well, I don't know about these Bible plans of reading the Bible in a year, because it seems like it's just informational and it's not transformational. And when you read scripture, it really has to be And I said, well, I can only explain this from going through it. Is, yeah, it might seem like it's just informational. I need to get from point A to point B, and what can I learn as I go through it? But when you really read it with an open heart, you pray through what you're reading, it is transformational. Like, this has been probably the most transformational I've ever had in scripture in a long time, because it's really, God's really showing me where I can look to myself and my behaviors and what I'm doing through this. And like I said, we've not even gotten to the New Testament and the new covenant that's to come. This is just historical record of what was going on. So I don't know. It's, if you go into it just like, oh, I don't need to learn about all, or if you go into it thinking, well, I'm just going to learn more about the Bible, God's going to use that to transform you. So there really isn't an excuse to not read through the whole Bible in some way. If it's a 3-year plan, if it's a 30-day shred plan that's on there that you want to get through.
It's a checklist and you check it off 5 years later. Still counts.
Yeah. But I think God uses that, because what you're doing is you're saying, listen, I'm committing to dive into your word, and I'm going to go for it. And then God's going to use that however he sees fit to transform your life. Because I don't think you can sit in scripture for any period of time and God not use that to change you and transform you. So yeah, I don't know. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And only like 3 more weeks to
to Jesus. Hold on. And then we're gonna get him 4 repeats in a row.
Well, I think for the little part we got, I think the birth of it, I think the birth of Jesus, I think we only have a couple. So I think we're really good with a few of those. Oh, but yeah.
We're already pretty far in. We haven't talked about our week's reading, or 2 weeks reading at all.
2 weeks. We took a holiday break.
We took a holiday break.
You know what? Because everyone needs rest. It's biblical. So.
Although the last time was a 2-week one as well. So we're 2 weeks right now.
Breaks. Summer vacation. End of summer vacation. Now we're back at it.
This is like our resting before we get into Jesus, so to speak. We're hyping up for it.
Let's see what buzz. We are preparing our hearts. We're preparing our hearts, and we are, taking time to really, all that stuff.
So,
all right.
This was interesting. Talking about informational, because you said that, and I immediately thought, there was a lot of information these 2 weeks. Like when we hit Ezekiel, I think it was like 40 through 44 was all about this vision of Ezekiel walking around, and he has shown the measurements of all the walls and all the guard houses and all of the everything. And I'm like, wow, it is still going. And I did think at the moment, I was like, it probably would have been a very interesting vision to have because, God's there. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't imagine just watching that.
But didn't you have flashbacks to parts that we've read before where we've got into like measurement?
Yeah,
And
the old stuff where they're talking about the tabernacle and the temple.
Yep. But I just think I truly believe that people are wired, like somebody is seeing this and like, oh, that's so cool, like that's so awesome. Could you imagine getting all those all that information?
Yeah.
I guarantee there's people that are excited
An
about
architect
that.
out there is like, this is the best chapter of the Bible.
This is that's their life verse is in there somewhere.
The gatehouse was 64 and a half feet. Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah. Then he brought me to the inner court on the east side and he measured the gateway. That's my life.
Well, and I like too the part where he says, and he went to the other gate and they were all the same measurements, which for us is one sentence. But I'm picturing his vision as like he walks over there and they do all of the measurements all over again.
I don't know. It's just
not like these measurements are the same, but literally he goes and he measures.
And once again, it's just my inner visual of reading this and but you can just see God walking around, flannel shirt, tool belt on, pulling out his tape measure. And I do love it.
Why not? I mean, he's very specific about the tabernacle and the temple. He's very serious about architecture.
He is. And but like you said, I love that they're taking time to walk like you said, and he measured the gateway. It had the same measurements as the others. Like, God couldn't just say, and you know what we just did there? Just do the same thing. No,
all three.
Yeah, I thought, informational.
It was very informational. There was great stuff in there too, obviously. Something I did get caught up in, which was more this week rather than last week, was the dreams and visions of Daniel, because every time he started talking about something, I would actually look it up as I was reading it. Like, okay, what is the historical significance of this? So, for example, and I think it was Daniel chapter 7 and possibly chapter 9, if I'm remembering correctly. But it's talking about basically the next several kingdoms that are going to happen. Like the Babylonians are going to be taken out. Then there's going to be the Medes and the Persians. And then there's going to be the Greeks. And then there's going to be Rome. And it is it's kind of interesting. It's kind of awesome that to see this historical reference where God predicted the future that we can see when we go and we look at history and see, he totally got it right. Like that is exactly what happened. So that's something that I think is actually pretty cool about this stuff, is being able to look and see the moments where God literally predicted the future, which Jesus also does. Yes. Speaking of my friend Jesus, we'll get to soon. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I was glad that we got out of, if it was just the Ezekiel walking around and measuring thing, I think I would have had a rough time, but at least we got out of that.
I was wondering if that was going to be the whole week. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. I need to go somewhere. I need to go somewhere with this.
And, it just built the anticipation of the New Testament all the more. Because I knew once we got there, we wouldn't be measuring stuff necessarily.
And we did, I think, because we're here now. So I had a little, where are we now when we're podcasting? But we did get into Ezra a little bit, right?
We did.
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to remember. We're on schedule. We're on Wednesday now. So we did just get into Ezra. So there was a band in the 90s called Better Than Ezra. And all I can think of every time I hear this is, that's a very weird band name, but I'm really curious if they made it like, or if they just had a friend named Ezra, or if they thought they were better than the Ezra from the Bible. I don't know.
Yeah. All
Fun
next
fact,
week
though.
is going to be Ezra and Esther, some Zechariah.
Wow.
Excited
Look
for
at
that.
you. Always looking ahead, Anna. That's
I
what
just, I really, all right, let's refocus. Let's refocus on these past 2 weeks.
What I love is, once again, just little things of what you use and what you might miss out on if you just use the Bible app. When you have the when you go into the study Bible, it always starts out with the purpose, author, audience, all that stuff, and the author of Ezra, not stated, but probably Ezra. I just
Just like a thought.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. Pretty sure, out of much thought and historical research, we think Ezra was written by Ezra. But
although you never know, because like there was a section with Jeremiah where he had like this guy scribe it out for him.
Yeah.
So could have been somebody else, but probably Ezra.
But once again, Ezra, right off the bat, we get the theme of information right off the bat. We get inventory. Ezra takes inventory right off the bat, and it's Ezra 1, like 1:9. It's because 1:8, Cyrus the king of Persia had brought them, and the treasurer who counted them out to the prince of Judah. This was the inventory: gold dishes, silver pan, gold bowls, matching silver bowls, and other articles. We get an inventory, so information is there, and then list of the exiles who were returned. We get lists and numbers. So if you love that stuff, Ezra's bringing it to you.
True. So. There were a couple verses that I wrote down. One of them was from Chronicles, which of course we're still looking at.
It's there. It's gonna be there.
Still there to the very end. First Chronicles 7:24. This is talking about a bunch of genealogy. He had a daughter named Shira, and she built the towns of Lower and Upper Beth-horon and Uzzen-Shira. And I was like, Eric is always nagging on me about how I don't pick out the women verses. So I'm like, I'm going to write this down.
I need to write that down. There you go. Stand up for that. Really showing the power of women.
She built 2 towns, 2 of them.
She did.
She's pretty great.
Giving her credit. And I bet you there's not a lot of people that go around giving her the credit that she deserves. So
that's right.
Good job.
Town. Who can say they built a town? Not a lot of people.
No, I haven't. There you go. So there's 2 people.
I want to. There's also a verse, Ezekiel 33:17. This is not this week, but last week. And I was just like, this is just a good verse. I feel like it summarizes a lot of stuff we talked about. Your people are saying, the Lord isn't doing what's right, but it is they who are not doing what's right. And I was just like, that's like a really good summary of everything we talked about just in like, really, I feel like the past month of people are all like, man, God's not giving us justice. Or one of the big questions that people have of, if there's evil in the world, how can there be a God? And people are often asking, God's not doing what's right. Why isn't he, doing what's right? Why isn't he intervening? But what are you doing about it?
Well, and that, when I remember, because hearing that, it really shot me back to when we were in Job, and Job was sitting around with his friends, and it's the same thing. It's like, no, I can't wrap my head around what God is doing here. Well, no, it's your fault. It's what you did. It's which way? Is it what I did? Is it what God's doing, and who's to blame? And I once again thought about everybody just sitting around having that conversation back and forth about whose fault it is.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things.
Job really set up the Old Testament struggle for sure. I was like, man, that's a throwback. That's the very first book No, well, we read Genesis 1-4. But after that, Job was like really the very first book that we read. So
Yeah.
it's good stuff. But that was my verse from that.
You did good. It was funny that I don't know why. Oh, it's because I was talking about Ezra in the list, but you brought up the woman that definitely built 2 towns. But then when we get into Ezra's list, it's the list of men of the people of Israel, the men of Bethlehem, the priests, the men. It's all well.
Esther's counting. She's got a whole book for herself.
There you go.
Oh. Well, but I think it's important to look at too. I was reading this book. It's called Tactics by Greg Koukl, and it's talking about how to talk about your Christian convictions. And one of the things it was discussing people will talk about tough issues, and they'll say, well, listen, like God is okay with that particular issue because Jesus never said anything about it. And what he said was, well, number one, if you look at the Bible, well, I'm just going to go into this. We're talking about Jesus. Yeah, I'm okay with that. So he says, well, number one, it says in the New Testament, spoiler alert, that there were a lot of miracles and things that Jesus did. And he said that were not recorded because there was just so much. And he said, number two, we cannot assume that because Jesus didn't talk about something that he didn't care about it. Because there were a lot of other things Jesus didn't specify that I can very clearly say he would have cared. Like, like even like modern times. He didn't talk about the internet. The internet can be very bad. Just because Jesus didn't talk about it doesn't mean it's not bad. But so like as I'm looking at this, throughout the Old Testament and women in the Old Testament, we have to be very aware of the culture of the time. Because if we are not aware of the culture of the time, if we are not aware of what's happening, we would assume that God hates women. He really does not. And in fact, we can see evidence of that even throughout the Old Testament and into the New. But it's just one of those things that you kind of have to be aware of. This is the inspired word of God, but there are different parts of it that were written to specific people at a specific point in time. So we have to be aware of the cultural ramifications so that we can correctly interpret it for now.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I think a lot of the struggle or a lot of the, because if you really just look at it and say, well, man, well, God let this happen or God let that, it's like, but go back a few books. Like if you're reading chronologically, look at how culture is taking steps forward. I mean, it's evident that, man, when a conquering tribe or a conquering group doesn't wipe everyone out and just takes the women, and that's progress. Like that's, so if they go from not murdering and killing everybody to sparing some and putting them in slavery, that's a step forward and showing compassion in a way they hadn't shown it before. So if you get into that, well, this is all horrible, you have to understand that culture is also starting to move forward and you need to see those things. So when these women step up in the Old Testament, to understand how big that is for them to come through in these moments in these cultures is huge. So you can't gloss over a woman who built 2 towns.
That's
because
like in the midst of a man-filled genealogy, that's a big deal.
So for you to highlight
that's not like, oh, it's a random exception. That's pretty amazing.
There weren't a lot of female town builders happening at
exactly
that moment in time. So I think you need to keep that in perspective and understand how big of an impact that is. So.
And to go along with what you were saying about, watching the changing of culture, we've also seen the movement of God in that, where God does not change, his justice and mercy remain the same. Mm-hmm. So in order to deal with us and our changes, we can see that God is changing the sin landscape. Now, his biggest deal was Jesus, but even as we're reading the Old Testament, there are very powerful changes that God implements in order to save us. For example, number one, the flood. We don't always think of that as a positive thing, but he reset humanity because humanity was creating generation after generation of people who were going to hell, which was not okay. He did the Old Testament laws, which again, we don't always think of as great, but it was very important because they kept people from sinning in ways that were killing them. Something I was thinking about just, was it yesterday? My mom was watching a documentary about some tribes people who had converted to Christianity. Well, in their past, they used to worship rocks. And so one day they go out to celebrate Christianity and they grab a big rock and they make a monument out of it, and somebody else starts praying something else. And what it reminded me of was the Old Testament law about the goats, where God was like, don't bring a goat into town. You need to sacrifice it at the temple. And we were talking about, it was because they were worshiping goat gods in the area. And God knew that if they got close to that line, that they would screw up. Then we go further. And then just recently, like I think it was last week, it talks about God is saying, generations will not be held accountable for the sins of their fathers and mothers. We didn't actually talk about it, but I did note it down. And that was another change because that had not been true not too far in the past. And now we're coming up on the big one, which is Jesus. So, to go back to that Ezekiel verse of your people are saying the Lord isn't doing what's right. God is doing so much because we are not doing right. And so I think it's crazy to see. We often think of like there's the Old Testament, Jesus, and then the New Testament, and that's what God did. But God actually did a lot of stuff in between.
Well, and that's, I think, if you forget or if you stop putting in how mighty and powerful God is, and if you lose that, and it's talked about a lot, but if you lose that fear of God, understanding that at any point God could just say, you know what, enough of this, I'm going to start over. Like, I'm done with this. But he keeps giving us opportunities, and through this Old Testament he's giving us opportunities in a way that he doesn't have to send Jesus. Like, this is a way for us to figure it out on our own. Hey, these are your own people speaking my words to you. Listen to them. Here's what they're saying. Do this. We're not listening. We're not listening to it. We're blaming and we're saying it's his fault, or, oh, he doesn't even exist. I'm going to worship these gods over here. We're doing this when he's giving us all of these chances, and he continues to do it because he is the creator of all things and he is powerful over everything. He could just, I assume, because I don't know God in a personal 1v1 conversation of, hey, God, what do you think about this? But I assume he could just say, you know what, enough of this. I'm starting over, and wipe everything clean and do something else. And he doesn't.
I mean, you did it with the flood. I would say you're pretty clear in saying that's a legit thing.
But yeah, it's just, I think that's, if we lose sight of that, I think we always look at that fear of God as such a negative thing, but understanding what his power can be. I mean, Old Testament, you step foot in the temple at the wrong time, or you're the wrong person, and you're gone. We had a whole couple weeks of
you're dead.
Yeah. So, we can't lose sight of that, because as loving and as merciful and as grace-filled, I guess, as God is, there's still that power to him that I think we lose sight
there's
of.
Still justice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we lose sight of that when we get too far into the loving part. There's both sides of it too. So,
well, and I think that Jesus, talking about Jesus again, I'm very excited. I think that Jesus is the greatest evidence. We think of him as the greatest evidence of God's love, but he's also the greatest evidence of God's justice. Because if there was any time for God to ignore justice, it would be to save his son.
Yeah.
He didn't do it. So that in itself, I think, is a powerful representation of how he's both a just God and a merciful God, which is, as we see throughout the Old Testament, what people are continually crying out for. They're either crying out for justice or they're crying out for mercy. And that is the cry of our own hearts.
Yeah.
And Jesus is the answer to that, both to justice and to mercy.
Look at that. You
2
can't,
more
you
weeks.
can't,
So close.
we're so close. Oh, I tell you what, you can't end on anything better than that right there. That people are watching and listening to this, and a single tear is just rolling down from that moment, just right there.
Pretty great.
Yeah, I think so.
Next steps.
So really for me, and this might just be a very general next steps, and it's not from the reading, but I am using these couple weeks leading up. I have that, I think it's September 23rd is what you put as New Testament starting. But I'm making sure that I'm going back, and anything that I missed, I'm trying to play catch up on. So I'm trying to make sure, like, okay, I missed, and trying not to forget about those parts that I haven't read. So my next step for these couple weeks leading up to this is making sure that I put this time in to make sure I'm not missing anything as we go into the New Testament. So that's my next step for people, or my challenge is to make sure that if there are little pieces that you're filling
Get
in.
that done with before you hit the new.
Yeah.
I do have 3 days that I am behind on. Not this week. It's like from a long time ago.
There was a lot that, like, weeks that I was just a couple days here and there, and I'm just like, okay, I have to make sure I know what those are and go with that. So,
well, and something I did too was, if I was like behind, I would still skim it, but I would intentionally not mark it off on my Bible app so I could go back and read it thoroughly. Because I'm like, this is the point of reading the whole Bible, is to read the whole Bible.
True.
So I've been doing that too as I've been catching up.
Yeah. So I just think this is a good time to do a little housekeeping, with where you're at with your reading. And even if it's just, hey, I'm starting today and this is my first week and I'm going to look at it, then hey, go for it. Don't worry about playing catch up. Just get into it.
Yeah.
Get ready. Feel all this.
Steal yours.
All right.
You set this up. I'm going to steal it. My next step is to prepare your heart for Jesus. Yeah, see, you said that.
There you go.
I'm taking it. Because this is the cool thing about the chronological reading, is this is a very powerful moment that is coming. And so I would say my next step is pray, ask God, prepare your heart so you can feel and you can understand the levity and the awesomeness of what is about to occur in our world. So that'd be mine.
Boom.
Stole it from Eric.
Hey, listen, inspired by. You didn't steal it.
Inspired by Eric Anderson.
There you go. I'll take it. I'll allow it. So there you go. Some good things coming, getting through these last couple weeks to get into, Jesus time. He's not going to let us down. He's not. So if you think we're getting all excited for this and there's going to be a big letdown,
I feel like we need to like recap the Old Testament or something before we hit the new, but that could be like 5 hours.
That could take, I think a full recap might be a little
it took us like 7-8 months to get here.
Listen, just when you go on your podcast, just speed up the speed at which we are and just listen to them.
Blur through all of them. That's true. You could do that.
There you go.
It's only like 30 something weeks.
I don't know. There's only 42 in a year, so.
Yeah.
Oh, deep cut.
Are there? No.
Deep cut, Anna. Some people thought there was only 42 in last year.
It was
But yeah.
48.
Yeah.
48 weeks. I was only 4 weeks off. 1 month.
Yeah.
We
You have
ignored
to be an old school and an Eric listener to get that joke.
Yes,
Yeah.
you'd had to be back. So thank you for listening to One Out with Ann and Eric. We're excited for next week. We're going to hit Esther. The week after that, we're going to close out the Old Testament, and then we hit Jesus.
Man, watch out.
It's going to be so cool. So
I can't wait. I'll be back. I'll be back for it.
Stay tuned. Prepare your hearts. Catch up. And we will see you next week. One
All
Out
right.
with Ann and
See
Eric.
ya.